Good evening and welcome to this new and Old Malden Neighbourhood Planning Subcommittee, whether here in person or watching on the webcast. My name is Councillor Leslie Heap. I'm chairing the meeting this evening. In the event of an emergency and the sounding of an alarm, the emergency evacuation procedure is to leave by the main staircase located behind me and congregate at the front of the building. Anyone requiring assistance should remain in their seats and an officer will assist you from the building. This meeting is being filmed for live broadcast on the Council's YouTube channel, and an archive version will be available to view on the Council's website after the meeting finishes. The broadcast will be suspended during any adjournments in proceedings and if the committee resolves to consider information as exempt business. Please can everyone present in the meeting ensure their mobile phones are switched off or in the silent mode for the duration of the meeting. So just as a matter of introduction, I'll just go round from the right-hand side if councillors would just like to introduce themselves. Thank you.
Richard Thorpe from Motspur Park and Old Malden East Ward.
Andrew Sillett from Coombe Vale.
Yvonne Tracy from Green Lane and St James Ward.
Good evening, Mike Massimi for Old Malden Ward.
Thank you. We also have officers in attendance this evening to give an overview of the report and advice during the meeting. On my right, I have Will Flaherty from Planning, and on my left, from Dem Services, Sam Nichols. Thank you. Members of the public are reminded that the planning application process is constrained by the need to have regard to current planning policy at national, regional and local levels, as well as all other material planning considerations, including case law precedent. The decision-making process is often described as quasi-judicial because local planning authorities have to act reasonably within the bounds of planning law and the above considerations and are not free to determine planning applications simply because of the weight of public opinion. There is a registration scheme for residents and applicants wishing to participate on the planning applications that are considered by this committee. Members of the public who have registered to speak will be invited to come forward to the table in front of the public gallery at the appropriate time. Do I have to read that out? No. So first of all, we have the minutes of the last meeting. Are members happy to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of September 2025? Thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest and attendance of site visits. Members are asked to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or any other registrable or non-registrable interests relevant to items on this agenda. Please can members also declare if they have been on a site visit.
Shall we go? I have visited the site.
That's Councillor Thorpe.
Yes, I have.
Councillor Sillett.
Yes.
Councillor Tracy. I have myself as well. Councillor Heap. I went on a site visit today.
I lived there for 5 years, but I haven't been on the site.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. So moving on, item 4, the planning item. That's 25/00964. House, 24 Poplar Grove, New Malden. I'm going to ask William Flaherty to introduce the item on the screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. So the application this evening seeks planning permission for the erection of a single-storey infill extension, a first-floor rear extension and 2 rear dormers. Also proposed demolition of an existing timber fence and replacement with a brick wall, a replacement outbuilding, change from single glazing to double glazing, and also the removal of an existing tree and the replacement with 2 trees. So this slide shows the application site bounded in red. So it is an end terrace property fronting onto Poplar Grove. To the immediate south of the site, just visible on the screen, are garages as well as to the rear. So here is an aerial picture, application site denoted with the red arrow. So we can see some other properties within the terrace. They have dormer windows. So this slide shows the site constraints. So the blue area is the Groves Conservation Area, a designated heritage asset, and indicated in purple, those are locally listed buildings. So here again is the proposed location plan. So this gives you an idea of where the extensions are. So at the rear of the property, we have the proposed kind of outbuilding. And then also you can see the single-storey rear extension in line with the neighbours, and then also the 2-metre first floor extension and the dormers. We've already done that. So now we're on the existing and proposed block plans. So on the left, the existing, so you can see the existing shed at the bottom of the garden to be replaced, as shown on the right. So again, you get an idea of the existing and proposed development. Existing floor plans, so there is an existing kind of outrigger extension. Existing roof plans, so we've just got roof lights at the roof level currently. Now we're on to the proposed floor plans, so we can see the single-storey rear extension basically infilling the gap to the left of the existing outrigger. At the first floor level, we've got the 2-metre extension, has a Juliet balcony on the rear elevation, no windows on the side elevation, and also the applicant has added the 45-degree measurement in relation to daylight, indicating that there's no kind of loss of daylight to the neighbouring first floor window. So here we have the proposed loft plan and roof plan. So again, mainly here is the 2 dormers and the flat roof of the first floor extension. Existing and proposed front elevations, so pretty much no changes to the front elevation. On the rear, we can see that existing outrigger. Existing side elevations. So the proposed, the only changes here are to the windows, which would be replaced like-for-like appearance, albeit double glazed. And then if we move to the rear elevation, so we can see the parapet roofed single-storey rear extension, same height as the neighbours. At the first floor, we can see the extension flat roofed, set in from the shared boundary, and then also the 2 dormers, which replicate what's been built at the neighbouring property. So on the side elevations, so again, we can see on the left here, the single-storey rear extension, progressing up to the first floor and the dormers, no additional side-facing windows, and then that is a section just showing kind of the property. And this is the outbuilding to be erected at the rear, same position as the existing, albeit slightly bigger, and in brick. And here is a side elevation of the entire plot. So we can see the brick wall, which is around 1.7 metres high, same as the existing fence. See the outbuilding just visible above. And these are some 3D visualizations, mainly for depicting, here you can see the progression of the development up, and also the neighbouring property. These are just some sections of the existing and proposed windows, so we're 100% satisfied that the double glazing won't have any harm to the significance of the conservation area. In terms of consultees, so the Tree and Landscape Officer, they've been consulted on the removal of the tree and the replacement, and they raised no objection. And then also the Malden and Coombe Conservation Area Advisory Committee, they haven't raised any objection either. Now we get into the site photographs. So on the left is from the rear garden of the application site. So you can see the neighbours' single-storey rear and dormers. On the right is looking from the back of the neighbour's property to the rear. So there's no properties directly to the rear, just those on a neighbouring street. And these are some site photographs. So from the south-east looking towards the site, tree hasn't quite lost its leaves yet, but you can just about make out the rear of the application site here next to the satellite dish. Next photo on the right, that is the front of the terraced properties. You can just see the alleyway to the left here and a garage. So this is the alleyway to the side of the property, and then the garage site to the left. And then this is at the other end of the terrace, so the alleyway which serves the rear of all the properties, this is accessed via here at the other end. This just shows the rear elevation of the property with neighbours. So there is a permitted development box dormer to the far end of the terrace. And then we also have some other dormers visible at neighbouring properties. And then this photo on the right is just taken north of the terrace. So again, you can see there are quite a few comparable dormers in the vicinity. This is a photo from outside the site in the garage site to the rear. So again, you can see this is the willow tree to be removed. You can see the dormer at the other end. And then this is a similar view, but more directly behind, just showing the rear of the terrace. And then this is a photograph taken from the rear boundary of the site. So you can see directly to the rear, there's no properties, just gardens. And then some neighbouring properties to the left off the neighbouring road. Some photographs from within the site on the left, so that's just the existing shed to be removed, and also the willow on the left. And then this photograph on the right, this shows the existing gate. So this is from the rear alleyway behind the adjoining property, looking at the existing gate, which is to be replaced. So yes, for the reasons set out in the officer report, it is recommended that the application is approved subject to planning conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, William. So we have one registered speaker on this item, James Lappin, on behalf of Mrs. Apologies for my pronunciation, Prusach, is to speak as an objector this evening. If you'd like to take a seat there.
I think Mrs. Lappin would also like to speak. She did register too. If she wants to speak.
Did you want to share the time? Oh.
Oh, no.
No. Which is your Mrs. Lappin? Did you register to speak? Did you want to share the time with James or not? It's entirely up to you. Okay, moral support. Okay, so welcome James to the meeting and Mrs. Lappin, I don't know your first name. You can now address the committee with your comments. You're reminded you have 5 minutes in which to speak. We will let you know when you have 1 minute left so that you can come to the end of your time. And Sam here will time you. So, when you're ready. Thank you.
We have no objections to the ground floor extension. We have no objections to the dormer roof. Our concerns and objections relate to the first floor extension. Can you hear me? Yeah. So the ground floor extension, as you've seen in the photos, there's precedents all the way along the terrace. Same for the dormer roof. So we've no objection to that. Building out at first floor level, there is no precedent for that in that terrace that you showed. There's also no precedent for it in the adjoining terrace in Lime Grove because there's an L shape formed by the two terraces. It's quite a nice effect at the back of the properties, and these two terraces that adjoin There's no building out at first floor level in either terrace. And we therefore think that, I think you could see from the drawing of the proposed, of the back, where it really looked different, the back of the house, not that one, it's starting to look different, the back of those properties with the first floor building. Yeah, you can say that.
Yeah, also with the Juliet balcony and the window style is not in the same. Okay. So also the Juliet balcony and the style of windows on the first floor extension are not in keeping with the rest of the row, and also the buildings of the similar style in Lime Grove. There's, like James says, there's no other buildings in Poplar Grove and this style or in Lime Grove which have a first floor extension like that. And we feel it's out of keeping with the heritage of the buildings. And, you know... Do you want to?
The main point is it's out of keeping with the rest of this terrace and the Lime Grove terrace, the first floor. Like I said, no objection to the rest of the application whatsoever.
Is that the end of your...
That's all I've got to say.
Have you got any other things you want to raise?
Or you'd like us to say?
Unfortunately, I do apologise. Unfortunately, other people can't contribute because
Right.
we have the strict planning rules. Yeah.
That's all I'd like to say.
Would you like to say anything else further? Before members may ask some questions.
In the spirit of the conservation order, which is keeping these buildings in a similar style as possible to the original Edwardian design, where there is an in the original footprint there was a ground floor extension, there were purpose-built outhouses, so we can understand why people would want to extend across and create a ground floor building. That's quite acceptable to us, and it's within keeping with the historic extensions which have been done over the years. But this first floor extension we feel in style as well, with the flat roof and the style of windows and the size of it is not in keeping.
Anything further to say? No?
No.
Thank you very much indeed. Just wait there, because I'm sure the members will have some questions of you. So I'll move on. Do any members wish to ask some questions of the objector? Obviously, the applicant isn't here tonight, but I've got a couple of questions, but I'll let you go first. Councillor Massimi. The applicant isn't here tonight, so it'll be questions to the objector. Thank you. Councillor Massimi.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. Thank you for sharing your concern. Can you help me out to understand the main reason why you will be worried about the back of the property style of windows, which is slightly rounded at the top, as well as the office space, which they want to extend as a first floor? My understanding from the drawing and the layout is this is only really technically visible from the back, further back of the road, in that kind of a cul-de-sac-ish type of place. It's not something that is directly visible unless you really go to the alleyway and then look back. So I just want to understand, are they concerned from the side, are they concerned from the distance, or is it that you might fear this will create a precedent, which is probably something worth mentioning? Thank you.
I definitely feel it creates a precedent. Like I said, there's no precedent for building out on the first floor. You're right, it won't affect passers-by going in front, but it will affect the whole feel of the terrace from people in their back gardens, whether they're in that part of Poplar Grove or Lime Grove, the back there, which at present is a very uniform 2 terraces, many with with dormer windows or with ground floor extensions, but none is totally flat at that first floor level. So building out, and to me, I take your point, Tanya's point about the windows, but to me, it's the actual extension itself. However they did the windows, it's the building out on that first floor level is what I think the main objection is.
Thank you. I have a supplementary question.
Supplementary,
Chair.
yeah.
Thank you, Chair. If they were to review the planning to counterbalance the fact that there is a flat roof leading on to basically the roof level, or therefore having not a flat roof on the office extension, while keeping this Juliet balcony and first floor flat roof, will that be more acceptable?
I don't think so.
No.
It's the building out that's the problem, not the shape of it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Sillett.
Good evening. So it's purely aesthetic, and you're worried that this is going to set a precedent that will alter the Edwardian character of the terraces from the back?
Correct.
Thanks.
Anybody else got any? Councillor Tracy? No? Councillor Thorpe? Yeah, I have a question. So you referred to a Juliet balcony. Now, I had a look at the properties today along the back, from the back of the garages in Chestnut Grove, the maisonettes, that look directly onto there. Now, number 56, I think it is, from my calculations, has a Juliet balcony and is built out in a in a roof extension, whatever you want to call it. So that's there. Obviously, from down at ground floor level, I couldn't see if they've got a kitchen extension or downstairs extension. But next door to the proposed application at number 26, they have a ground floor extension. And to me, this application would appear to kind of mirror that. Can I finish? With the dormer windows, which it's also got. And as you say, because in some of the objections it said...
1 minute remaining.
Sorry. In some of the objections, whoever sent them, they said that there weren't any first floor extensions, which that isn't true, because there's a lot of houses along Lime Grove, I think it is, if I get my groves right, Lime Grove, that have got the windows extensions and possibly have got ground floor extensions as well, but I can't see. So that is my comment about that. Thank you. If you'd like to...
56 isn't part of the... Yeah.
That correct?
56 isn't part of those style of Edwardian houses at number 56.
It is. Number 40 to...
I live in 52. 56 is not an Edwardian house. It was built in the 1920s.
Yeah. Our properties were built in 1906.
Yeah, well, those are all in that row, and the only one that's 1920s that you refer to is number 60, which is a detached house on its own.
Yeah, but the other two...
Could you refrain from commenting, please?
Time's up, Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't. I've been down the block from number 40.
Could you show us a photo?
Well, I had a look today.
56 is not part of the terrace.
That's time, Chair.
Thank you.
The questions.
It's the last part of the terrace. I live in 52 and I should know.
Yeah, we've been residents since 1969.
So I will now move the recommendation as set out in the agenda report. Do I have a seconder for that?
I'm happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thorpe. Thank you. Do members have any questions of the officer to William Flaherty? Thank you. Councillor Massimi, I saw your hand first.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I have two questions, really. I think it's one around the potential precedence of an extended first floor balcony / flat roof on top of a ground floor, which is quite common in the Grove extension-wise. And for those type of property, which I know have a really unique character, I also noticed, to my surprise, that the heritage and conservation groups have not raised any objections, which, fair enough, they are expert. One of the questions that I have, and it really surprises me, because someone needs to tell me if really it is necessary. We are talking about removal of a tree, okay, the lime tree, which, fair enough, from a biodiversity might not be an oak or might not be that great, but this is a tree which is easily 40 years old. It's a tree which technically does not impact anything in terms of access, in terms of site, in terms of work. Removing this with something that I would call borderline, with no offense to anyone, pathetic, with 2 small Japanese trees, which are basically could be a meter high. There's no limit really on how big, how old, how thick. On top of extending already the backyard with further paving, is this really necessary? Can we not just keep those trees which are both in the back for biodiversity, because they've been around, they work around the house if this is granted, but really I don't think this is fair, and I would like to request with you, Chair, if we can put a condition that the trees that are currently, mature trees that are currently on the ground, on the land, remain whatever happens. They should not be removed just because they do not add enough biodiversity or they are not visible. It is unnecessary. That's my first question. And the second, well, the one that I've asked earlier, which is regarding the first floor flat roof with extension and balcony. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So if we take your first question in relation to the first floor extension, I hate the term precedent because each application must be assessed on its own merits. This is an end of terrace property which kind of lends itself to this type of extension. You don't have the neighbouring amenity concerns which you would do if it were a mid-terrace property extending. But yes, I think if it were approved, it would be a material planning consideration if neighbours wanted to try something similar. But as we said here in the report, we don't think it does cause any harm to the character and appearance of the area. So again, I don't think just because this has got a first floor extension proposed, all properties would automatically have the right to. There are quite a few other constraints, concerns, and neighbouring amenity, for example, which might restrict that. In relation to your second question, so the tree officer has been out on site and looked at the tree. So this is the one here. It is a type of willow tree. And basically, due to its health, size, and overall condition, and limited visibility within the street scene, the tree officer says it wouldn't be worthy of having a tree protection order. And he says, well, it's not actually going to last that much longer due to its kind of multi-stem, etc. So the tree officer is satisfied with the proposed replacement. Yes, I take your point. We don't ordinarily want to see the removal of trees. But in this case, because it's being replaced 2 for 1 in accordance with our policy, we're happy. And just to confirm that no other trees on site are being removed, so this nice silver birch at the back, that would be staying.
Thank you, William. Anybody else? Councillor Thorpe.
William, you mentioned that some of these houses have dormer windows in the roof and some don't. Would those have been original features, or have they been introduced since the houses were built?
Nearly all of them are not original. So the neighbouring property, or the adjoining property, so on the photograph to the right, that was granted planning permission in 2021 for the 2 dormers. The large box dormer at the end, that would have been permitted development or is lawful now because it's been so long. But I think that's been there for kind of at least 30 years-ish. And then, yes, all the dormers further along, in this case, the photograph showing Lime Grove properties, they're all additions as well. So some properties of this type, you do have dormers, but not in this case.
Councillor Sillett, I saw your hand up. Councillor Tracy and then Councillor Sillett.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm with Councillor Massimi on the tree, because, you know, it is at least 40 years old. Looking at the plan, am I right in saying that if the tree was to stay, it wouldn't affect any of the building that was going to go ahead? I mean, I can't see the reason for it being taken down. Is there a reason? Would it stop any of the building being built to keep it?
I think it would only be in relation to the brick wall, potentially. So the existing fence, which has probably been lifted by the tree roots, etc. I can only think that's the reason why there might be a need for it to be removed. But yes, it does form part of the application, and we have assessed its loss and replacement. Yeah.
Councillor Sillett? Councillor Massimi?
Thank you, Councillor Sillett. Thank you, Chair. I just want us to rewind, with all due respect to everyone. 2 years ago, we were sitting, or 2.5 years, regarding a very nice proposal also for another character type of house, number 27 Tedford Road, fantastic Victorian type. We were convinced by everybody that the tree were going to create some troubles, they're going to die, they're going to break. We had 4 storms ever since. The trees are standing strong, they are perfect, the exact same tree that everybody was convinced should go, and because it was too old, too sick, too tall, blah, it is there. Irrespectively of not having a tree protection order, which is quite challenging and require a lot of hurdle and red tape, there are no justifications, even if we have a law of saying replace 1 for 2, because we know exactly what it is. It's a tree which is the size of my thumb that's going to be planted, because technically it needs to be 1.5 meters or something like this. It's useless. There is no deep roots. The tree is there. If there is a little bit of an impact on a brick wall, I'm sorry, they moved the brick wall or they put a wooden fence. The tree is standing. The tree should stay. So I would like to ask again, with all due respect, if we can have a condition that a tree which is healthy, even if it doesn't look nice because only a few people can see it, it's wildlife, it's the ecosystem, it is about, flooding, it is there and it should stay. We built around it, we're not going to remove it and just put 2 twigs of whatever style just for the sake of saying we replaced it. Why replace it? Why remove it? I would like to know if it's a condition that we could add and that my colleague will be happy with. I think there is no need to remove a tree, even if there are no TPOs on it. It is too easy, and where do we stop? Thank you.
William, would you like to respond to that, please?
Thank you, Chair. I totally sympathise with the points you're making, and they are good points. But operating within the planning policies that we have, and our residential design SPD, which has the 2-for-1 policy, I don't think there would be any reasonable grounds to, well, we can't unilaterally amend the proposals for the applicant. They've applied for this. So even if we had a condition, it wouldn't work because they've strictly applied for it and we wouldn't be granting what they've applied for. So I think the only option, if you were to feel that strongly about the tree, would be to move to refuse, which I would strongly caution against because I don't think there's any reasonable grounds to do so. We have our tree and landscape officer, who is our expert witness, who is satisfied with its removal. He is of the view that it isn't going to last that much longer. I appreciate that might be disagreed with, but if it ever came to an appeal, we'd have to say, well, why have you disagreed with your tree officer who has all the qualifications, etc.? And I think it would be a ground for costs. So while I do sympathise with the comments you're making, constrained by the planning policies we have, I just don't think there's any reasonable grounds to require a condition seeking the retention of the tree. And I don't think it would even be possible in this case to put such a condition on because the applicant specifically applied for its removal.
Thank you, William. I'd like to just add about the tree in 27 Thetford Road was a massive tree. This is, compared to it, a twig. It's a very small tree.
This is 20 metres high with all due respect.
Well, okay, but it may be that it needs some pruning. I don't know. I did see it, but it didn't look massive in the garden when I went there today.
So if it's
Did you go there and have a look at the tree?
No, I have plenty of photographic and video evidence, and I've seen the pictures. You can see the tree. The tree is taller than the building itself. I'm not saying if that's the case, why removing it? That's exactly my point. So, I understand exactly the constraint of the planning regulations, and I understand that as much as sometimes we might think differently, there are rules that we have to adhere to. I understand that. But I just believe that we should be able to put a condition to say we would like the tree to be retained. It doesn't mean that we don't want things to go ahead, but I think it's unnecessary to remove a tree. And if it's a small tree, just assuming this is a small tree, well, leave it. Leave it, it's fine. Why do you want to remove a small tree to replace it by 2 even smaller trees? That is my point. It is just unnecessary, and the loss of habitat, as much as we say that it's not TPO, is not justified. I mean, have a look at the pictures. It's a tree. How long is it going to take to have a tree of a similar size? Probably another 25 years, if any. I just think in my view, it's a caprice that we can avoid, and it doesn't need to be removed.
The officer has explained the reason why it can't be in a condition. Thank you. Councillor Sillett. Thank you.
Mr. Flaherty, could you help me with my sort of deliberations here? I take on board the view of the objectors that the back line of the terrace will be altered. And I know you don't like the word precedent, but even just one would alter it. And they obviously get a lot of pleasure from the uniformity of that terrace at that level, that first floor level. I am actually pretty sympathetic to that view because I think the whole Groves area has had some developments that I don't like. I don't think this is a terrible development. It's not like a big concrete modern block like some of them that have gone up there. But I think in my heart is I really want to, try to fight to preserve the character, the Edwardian character of this area. There's some beautiful houses there, and there's some that are less beautiful. So my question to you is, it's a bit like the tree, really. My heart's with the tree, and I really appreciate Councillor Massimi's, fighting for that tree, and I probably feel the same. But I take on board that if we rejected it because of the tree, we could end up having to pay costs for the council taxpayers because of the appeal, because of the tree officer that doesn't really rate the tree very highly. How, in a similar sort of way, how would you rate an objection to me saying, well, yeah, there are dormers that break up the line of the terrace on the roof level, and there's these brick extensions that come back down on the ground floor, but so far the first floor is, original. Now, because this Malden, the CAAC, which I confess I've never heard of, they've never contacted me, say, well, we've got no objections to it. Well, these people live here, and I live in the ward as well. And they're objecting to it, and I can see their point. But if I objected on that grounds, could you give me some advice? Are we going to land council taxpayers with a big bill because it's going to just get overturned because the conservation people say it's not going to ruin the harmony of the it's well designed enough not to ruin the harmony of it. So does that make sense? It's a bit rambling, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
William.
Yep, thank you, Councillor. So when we look at the impacts of a proposal on a conservation area, we're looking at what makes that conservation area significant. And in this case, having gone through all the kind of conservation area appraisals, it is largely the intactness of the front of the properties. So yeah, there's the uniformity at the front, and similar with the locally listed buildings on Lime Grove. Again, it's a splendid terrace, pretty uniform at the front. So when we're looking at the significance, that's kind of one of the main things which makes this area special. The architectural kind of brilliance of the front. And as you say, at the rear, so it's not really going to be readily visible within the conservation area, mindful that the boundary is at the... so it's actually not going to be really visible apart from some oblique views at the corner where Poplar Grove meets Chestnut Grove. So really, it's not affecting the front of the property. It's not really going to be visible from within the conservation area itself. And given that there are already sort of flat-roofed extensions, we've got the dormers as well at the rear, we don't think it causes any harm to the significance, which is largely the front. So I think if you were concerned about the rear, I'm not entirely sure what grounds we would necessarily raise, but if you want me to consider it further and if you were minded to kind of pose a different motion, we can look into that. But yeah, given that the significance is towards the front and the integrity of the properties at the front, I don't think...
I take your point that it's, if you're looking at the conservation area, it's not visible. But for people that live there and enjoy the uniformity and the original features, I just don't know how much weight I can attach to that, given the conservation people have said, well, we're fine with it. Does that make sense? So I didn't quite understand. You said, well, if I was to present a motion, you would go away and consider it. Could you just elaborate on that, please?
So if you were concerned and thought the application should be refused, I could kind of suggest wording perhaps, but I'm not entirely sure there would be solid grounds which would stand up at appeal given kind of the officer's conclusion, the consultees, etc.
Councillor Thorpe.
It's a quick question on the tree. William, if the owner of the house chopped the tree down, would they need council permission to do that in the back garden? Because there's no preservation order on it.
So as it's in a conservation area, they should notify the council of what they're intending to do. But yes, they don't need kind of a tree application as such, as it's not protected. So they just notify the council, is it worth protecting? The tree officer would say no, and then they'd be allowed to chop it down.
So if there were no development going on, they could get that permission, fairly straightforward. Thank you.
That's correct, councillor.
Thank you. Anybody else got any comments? Or Councillor Tracy, do you have any comments or anything? No? Councillor Massimi.
Thank you.
A comment or a question?
A little bit of both, and education as well for me. So I think it's a very good question from Councillor Thorpe. I think it's a very good move. I have to be honest. I'm still want to ask you, because we did it for Thetford Road. We put this, and it was meant to be removed. They asked to be removed, and we asked, and we actually went ahead with, change, and they made some really good improvement. It looks stunning. Could we put it as a condition, even though the tree protection officer has said that there is no TPO, it does not bring that much value, but is that something that we could add, while also, if we decide to go ahead tonight, going ahead with the project? Are there any ground for us to say, we would like you to strongly retain the tree, or is there a way we can phrase it where they do not remove a tree just for the sake of moving a tree? And I understand exactly where Councillor Thorpe is coming, is they could do whatever they want, unfortunately, because of the law. But is there a way we can just work on it to protect and preserve that tree?
Thank you, councillor. I think we could certainly add an informative kind of requesting that the applicant retains the tree. But yes, as we can't compel them to do so, we couldn't do a condition. But I think an informative kind of requesting, and I think you have raised some really good points, which the local plan is currently being drafted, so it might be you can feed into some tree-related policies on that. I think that's probably the most appropriate for them.
Are we on to comments? That wasn't a question.
Yeah, comments now, yeah.
Yeah, I'm minded to support this application. This is a change to the back, so it isn't visible from the street. And as we've noted, the conservation people are comfortable with it. And it doesn't look particularly out of keeping in style. And the fact that this is not the original design, that there have been changes made before, I don't think we can assume that this is precedent setting. And as I've already indicated, I think that the tree isn't really an issue, given that it has no preservation on it and it will be replaced. So I'm minded to support this.
Then, yeah, and then I'm going to sum up.
Yeah, I'm minded to object to it, but I'm a bit worried about the legal grounds for doing so. You know, I'm really despair at some of the development in the Groves area. This is an intact Edwardian line at the back, and I just think, yeah, there's so much development that's just changing the character of it. The thing is that the conservation people haven't really helped me on my case by saying, well, we think it's going to not affect the harmony of it. I think it kind of will. It's not terrible. It's not really a really ugly sort of development, but it will change that line. And I just whether to draw a line in the proverbial sand with this by saying, well, let's try and keep our original Edwardian features, you know, that are fast disappearing. That's my view, and that's where I'm at.
So Tracy.
Thank you. Yes, I'm of a mind. I want to object to it because things are changing, and once they change, they won't come back. But I'm very mindful that we are under strict instructions of what we can refuse things for, and if we refuse and they go to appeal, it costs the taxpayer so much money. So it's very torn between thinking it shouldn't go ahead, but thinking, but it probably will go ahead even if we say no tonight. So it's difficult, isn't it?
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm like some of my colleagues, I'm furious about it, and I think it's for the record. Because of the rules and regulations, our hands are quite tight. We as much as I personally think that we don't like the word precedent, but earlier my colleague used precedent to say, well, we have Juliet balcony. Here you are. Or why not building on those White House some Greek columns? We have precedent. And they took 10 pictures of properties within a 2 miles radius and say, it's been done before, so we can do it again. So we don't like precedent. But we know perfectly well that in the Grove and elsewhere, in conservation area, we have the same in Malden. If we give a hand, they take an arms. And we will have someone else say, well, you granted it 6 years ago, well, now we can have it. And we don't like precedent, but we create a precedent. It is challenging, unfortunately, because of the financial burden that this might anchor on us residents and taxpayers and the council. And because of regulations, we've got very little say, which is sad, both from the wildlife and the trees, and also from, you know, we like the front of the property. Well, the back and the front are as important. You know, in my view, some of those should be listed property already, but that's too late. So it pains me to say that for some of us, we will have against our will to probably vote in favor because we have not enough ground to appeal based on the rules and regulations, which are shockingly hard to challenge and lack common sense in many ways, in my view.
Thank you. Is that everybody? Right. Okay. So in the document, it does say 10.4, refusal only if it doesn't comply with the development plan. So I'm just going to ask William, it definitely does comply. And therefore, I believe that at appeal, we wouldn't have a chance and we would get refused. It would be upheld by the appeal of the resident. Am I right there?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, certainly officers, having taken into account all the material considerations, development plan, national policy, we're of the view that the proposals fully comply. We haven't identified any harm to the conservation area, no harm to neighbours, and yes, the replacement for the tree is acceptable in planning terms. Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
There was a mention of an informative. Is that
I was just about to say that, yeah. I just wondered if I have something else to say. I wanted to make a comment from the other side of the buildings, the houses on Chestnut Grove, 71 to 85, that are looking onto the other houses with, some of them have got Velux, some have got dormer windows and that. There's quite a distance there between those residential properties, and there's quite a tree covering, which kind of softens everything, I think. And yeah, I think that's probably... I haven't finished yet. For me, it is a conservation area, but the overall impression, because I live in New Malden, but I don't live in that part of it, is that there have been lots and lots of buildings over the years and the decades, the 30s, 40s, whatever, of stuff that just really hasn't taken into consideration a conservation area whatsoever. And I think this small row of 4 houses and the other 10 or whatever down the other side, in the other road, are very nice from the front. And for me, it's about the front and the appearance. And the backs, we have to, I think, move. People want downstairs space. They want space for a modern family these days. We're not living in isolation of living in an Edwardian house. I have done that, and they're tiny. But I think for this, I think the design and everything, I think, is very sympathetic. And I'm going to vote in favour of it. Thank you. And just to say that we had an informative, if that could be added to that, I'm going to go to a vote. Okay, the informative was, yeah.
Yeah, just to confirm, so an informative requesting that the applicant retains the tree, the willow snag tree on site.
Thank you very much. Okay, right. So those in favour of this proposal, please raise your hands. That's 3, 4. Those against? Those abstaining?
2 abstentions.
Okay, 2 abstentions. Thank you very much, everybody. So that is agreed. My piece of paper, right. There are no items authorised by the chair, so I close this meeting at
8:22.
8:22. Thank you very much indeed for coming. Thank you very much indeed for speaking tonight. And thank you and good night, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening.